Hey guys, so today is September 4th, and September 4th is the day that sadly Steve Irwin passed away. And so on today of September 4th, 2024, that would make 18 years since Steve passed away, which, I just want to do a little video talking about that and just how much he meant to me and how much he influenced me and my work, obviously, and what I do. Man, it's really sad. His loss was so heavy, I think, for most people in the animal community who especially work with reptiles and things like this. So it was just such a sad moment. It's kind of like I remember exactly where I was when I heard about it. It's almost like 9/11 in a way. I knew exactly where I was when I heard about 9/11. I knew exactly where I was when I heard Steve Irwin had passed away. And in both cases, I just couldn't believe it was true. And when I heard about Steve, I was actually hiking a place called the Enchanted Forest in Central Florida, and I was out there hiking with, I think it was with my dad. And I heard the news, and I just could not believe it. I couldn't believe that it was actually true. And I was just so sad and just so upset, and it was just so horrific. Big man, there you go, buddy. Bella, there you go. We're giving him a couple pieces of shrimp too while we're hanging out in here. Big man, there you go, big guy. It was just really sad, obviously. Now, what was his influence on me? So I grew up in Central Florida. We were kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There were no other kids on my street. We grew up pretty poor. So we didn't have cable, and I didn't have any exposure to him actually until I went to a friend's house. And then I saw Steve on TV there, but I had already been into animals. I'd already been out, catching snakes and lizards and little gators and stuff like that. So like I was already fully into this world, and I felt like a total weirdo, in school around everybody else, because I was just the weird animal kid. I was obsessed with animals. That's all I wanted to do. That's all I ever did. And then, I'd tell people about it, and they'd think I was very weird. I guess I was. I mean, yeah, I was a weird kid. Big Mac. Because, that was right in your mouth, dude. Bella. But, so the first time I saw Steve Irwin, it's less that he inspired me to work with the animals, because I was already working with I was a kid, but I was already fully obsessed and enveloped into the animal life. But the way that he really inspired me more than anything is he kind of normalized my passion. And when I saw him, and I saw him as a successful man with a career and an educator and making a difference as a conservationist, to me, that's what was so inspiring. It's just like, whoa, like, he made it. I didn't know that's what I wanted to do, but that's what I want to do. I just knew I loved animals, and I didn't think that there was an outlet for it or a way to have a career really working with animals the way that I was. Big man. So for me, that was like a really, really big deal to see that and to have like a path shown to me that there is a way to do this, and that there are people who are interested in this. That was another big thing too, is I felt like a freak. I was kind of a weirdo. I was the only kid I knew who was obsessed with animals. Literally nobody else I knew as a kid. I had some friends who, they liked animals, but they weren't like obsessed with animals. So like that was another way that it was like really a big deal to me and really inspirational to me, is to see that and kind of normalize that passion for me, Bella. That's solid. Big Mac. There you go, buddy. Whoop, look at Bella. She's still trying. Now, as I have my own career and I'm doing my own thing, I'm constantly being compared to Steve, which when people say, like, I get these comments all the time, they're like, you're just like Steve Irwin. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. And they're like, no, they mean it in a negative way. Okay. I do get the positive way too, but it's pretty crazy how many people say it in a negative way, like, oh, you're going to be just like Steve Irwin. And I'm like, yeah, I hope so. Like, people say it like that, like, you're going to be just like him. Like, that's a bad thing. I'm like, it's a bad thing to live a life of complete passion and make a difference and become world renowned in your craft. Like, yeah, but he died. And I'm like, I would rather live a half-life as Steve did and have the impact he did than to live a life of absolute mediocrity and live until 100 and do literally nothing and never live your passion and work in a cubicle. You know, that's the one that like always gets me about that. And people are like, you're gonna die just like him. And I'm like, and you're gonna die a nobody. You're gonna die never having done anything for yourself or for a bigger picture than working a job for someone else and making money for someone else. And I don't want to get too like cynical on that, but really, I mean, that is what most people do. They never actually get to explore their passion, especially people who comment negatively on the internet to someone who they don't know is a stranger. You know their life is not good. I have never met anybody who writes hateful things on the internet who's actually happy with their own life, you know? So that's just kind of one of the things that I just like to point out is, you know, that's a compliment to me to be compared to Steve. Like, he was amazing and he was living his dream every day. He was living his absolute dream, his absolute passion. And yeah, I would 100% rather live half of my life living my dream and my passion and doing what I loved every single day than live an entire 100 years as a mediocrity loser doing a dead-end job at a cubicle and hate my life and never do anything I actually care about or I'm passionate about, you know? And like, it's always these comments, people like, they don't even say anything. Sometimes it's just Steve Irwin, and it's Irwin with an ER. It's like Steve Irwin. I'm like, what? You say that like it's a bad thing, you know? It's just crazy to me, you know? And that people like, I feel like a lot of Steve's impact has already been forgotten. That's another thing that like I see with a lot of younger people who didn't grow up with Steve Irwin. You know, for people who grew up with him, obviously they revere him and they love him, you know, but a lot of people now a younger crowd has come along who didn't grow up with Steve, and they don't understand the impact that he had. And like, I think it's really significant to point that out. Like, some of the impact, he had massive conservation impact, protecting land, you know, the Australia Zoo, all that kind of like actual like boots on the ground impact, but also the psychological impact to get people to care about these animals specifically, about crocodilians, about sharks. He was like the first like real mainstream person on TV trying to teach people that like, you know, yes, these are animals that are dangerous, but they're not mindless killing machines. And that's what I'm constantly trying to preach as well. Like, yeah, of course, they're dangerous, obviously, you know, and like he always had crocodiles trying to get them all the time, but he was the person also telling you, like, we need to protect these animals. Oh, got her tail.
Well, you see how gentle that was?
Yeah, he's just trying to get her out of the way.
Yeah, look how gentle.
She's very offended now. But, you know, he was just trying to like teach people to appreciate these animals, and that we can learn to appreciate them and not see them as monsters. You can understand the duality of this being a dangerous animal, but also appreciating its presence and recognizing, you know, that the world is a better place with these animals here than to just kill them all as monsters, you know? And that's the same message I try to convey now in my career. It's just trying to get people to understand that, like, these are amazing animals. Yeah, but they're dangerous. And I'm like, yeah, and if I had a life without danger, I would hate it. I want to live a life that does have these animals in it. Big Mac. Oh, Big Mac. Oh boy. There you go, buddy. So I just have a lot of mixed emotions, you know, talking about Steve, and like, I miss him a lot. I never got to meet him. I never got to work with him. People ask that a lot. I never did, unfortunately. Would have been nice. You know, I know some people, you know, who did get to meet him and work with him and everything, but I did not personally, unfortunately. I wish he was still around today, you know, but I do think about this. If he was around today, like if Steve was an up and coming young guy in today's world, how would the world take it? You know, like, I don't think it would go as well as it did for him back then. We have so much animosity now, and it's in some ways it is easier to become a personality who works with animals, because obviously we can reach people on social media, you know, like I'm extremely thankful for that, and it bypasses that whole element of dealing with TV producers. You guys heard me talk about that ad nauseum and how much I hate them. By the way, that's one of the reasons why Steve was so successful, is he produced his own content, as I understand it, and he was able to have the final say on what was going on, and he was not having to ride secondary to some producer from LA who knows nothing about animals. So as far as I understand, again, I didn't know him, but that's what I've been told, is that was a big key to his success, is he was purveying the information he wanted to and not beholden to some producer in LA or something like that. So social media, though, what I was saying, allows you to bypass that producer effect, and I think that's amazing. But at the same time, social media is such a toxic world, and he was like such a fun, happy guy, and like I just don't know, you know, like I see some people that try to come up in the world right now in social media in the animal community, and a lot of them get successful by being incredibly fake, which I don't think Steve was, and being abusive to animals, which obviously Steve was not, you know. And I see a lot of really negative traits arise in people in the social media world today because they are competing in this social media world of, I don't know how to articulate this properly, but there's just so much cutthroat hatred and animosity, and it's very hard to get through that. And so like I'm not sure if he would make it, because he seemed like he was such a genuinely like good guy. So I'm trying to scratch mosquitoes at the same time, man. They're just all over. But he was such a genuinely like good-hearted person that I would hope that he would make it today, but I do think it would be very, very difficult, you know. Now on that note, obviously he inspired so many of the people who do work, I would say almost everybody who works in animal either social media or TV and animal education, however you want to say it. Like I think he inspired almost everybody, or at least had some sort of impact on them, and I think it's really significant in that way. Gabby, what do you think? You were like making, you were like nodding along and like
no, I agree with everything you're saying. You know, like you touched upon so many things. I don't know where to start, but yeah, what you were saying about the negativity that he probably would get if he had social media now. And you know, unfortunately, social media also gives people a platform that don't necessarily have the credentials, and just one video takes off, and then all of a sudden they go from just a regular person, and now they are the God Almighty, all-knowing person of this thing. But you know, I don't know. We've seen it a lot.
It's a weird world. It's a very weird world. And,
well, people that, you know, and I'm not saying you have to be a biologist. I didn't even graduate. I was a biology major and I didn't graduate. I don't have a degree. But I'm saying a lot of people portray themselves as biologists and they don't have credentials, or they're not doing anything beneficial with their platform besides just, you know, harassing animals. And I think there's a lot of ego. And it's crazy because, I mean, if you know Chris and I in person, neither of us have an ego. I know, believe it or not. We really don't. And I just,
detractors would say.
there is no room for ego, especially in like the rescue community. And I feel like a lot of animals suffer because of ego. You know, like a lot of these rescues want to take on as many animals they can, or try to get like cool animals. And I see specifically these older women in bird rescue are now trying to start to rescue exotics. And it's like, exotics, especially reptiles, it takes years to pick up on little things and master little things and learn proper husbandry. And
so Gabby brought up a really good point, is using your platform for good. And I think that's something that Steve Irwin did a really good job with, and that I try to mimic in my work too. You know, I'm very well known for my work with alligators and crocodiles, you know, and I'm known around the world for it. I have a following of over 8 million people across all social media, and it's almost entirely for my work with alligators and crocodiles.
And that's not ego. That's
well, no,
just
I'm segueing
facts.
into the fact that I have a 40-acre animal sanctuary, and 1% of the animals are crocodilians.
Right.
You know, I'm using my following and my abilities to save more than just alligators and crocodiles, and that's what Steve did. You know, like Steve was the crocodile hunter. That's what he's famous for, was the crocs and jumping crocs, you know, all this cool croc stuff. But when I think about watching his show, what he would do, obviously a lot of croc stuff, but when you watched his show, it was also a ton of other animals that were in the surrounding area. And that's what I've tried to pitch when I've done TV shows, and I've had it shot down multiple times. I've pitched to multiple different networks, like, yeah, I want to do a show, we go here and we're focused on this big, gnarly megafauna predator, you know, whether it was sharks or gators or snakes, whatever. And I'm like, and then I want to go visit and see these animals because these are native to the area too, and they need help and they need attention for conservation. No, They would always say no to me. And that's something that I thought was a big deal that Steve did, is like, not only would he show this charismatic megafauna predatory animals that are really cool, he would also then show the surrounding animals that were not nearly as exciting to watch, but you probably never heard of, you know? And that's what we try to do here. You know, originally I just wanted to have alligators and crocodiles on my property, and turn around now and we have like, what, almost 100 birds alone with all the budgies, you know, all these. What are you doing? She's like burping. And then all these tortoises, coatis, foxes, you know, all these animals that, like, they don't make me any money whatsoever, if we want to talk about it that way. I make money on social media through my videos with alligators. You know, let's just, to be completely upfront, that's how I make my social media money. That's how I make my career, is I'm handling alligators in a way that almost no one else is. And so that's what is my success. But then I'm also using it for all these other animals to save, to rescue, and to give a home to at our sanctuary that they don't do anything. But I think, you know, in a monetarily way, they don't do anything for me. But man, I feel a lot better having saved them, and I'm sure Steve did too, you know? You want to say something, Gabby?
Yeah, I just want to hit the topic of like people saying, you know, like thinking there's something wrong with making money off of animals. There's different way to make money off of animals. Obviously, we are not doing any kinds of like interactions with any of the mammals, and I think there is a way to do that. We are not going down that route, you know, because we're a sanctuary and a lot of our animals aren't friendly. You know, people have problems with zoos, like exploiting animals. People don't like it that we film daily vlogs with our alligators and other animals because we're exploiting them for social media.
I grew up below the poverty line. How do you think I'm going to pay for this?
Here's the thing. If you eat meat, is that not exploiting animals? I feel like there's a lot of hypocrisy, and it really bothers me because we put so much time and effort and love. And recently some woman on YouTube who, she got very offended that people were complimenting Chris and I, and she's like, well, my husband and I rescue animals too. It's like, oh, okay, that's awesome. It's not a competition. And then she was saying like, well, we don't exploit them for money. And that's why you don't have a 40-acre sanctuary. Like, it's just.
Sorry guys, I got to pay for this stuff.
Well, it bothers me because everything you do is exploitation. If you dress up your dog and post a picture, is that not exploiting it? Is that not for life? You know, like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just trying to make the point. If you eat meat, you're exploiting them. If you go fishing, are you not exploiting those fish? Like, everything we do, and there's varying degrees and there's different levels, but it really bothers me when people are like, you're exploiting them for social media and exploiting them from this. And I think everything we do is technically considered exploitation. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, with what we're doing anyway.
Ethically,
exactly.
You know, I mean, Steve Irwin feeding a crocodile like this is exploiting that crocodile.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then people want to watch it, and then you are benefiting from people watching it. You know,
us feeding Bella, that is exploitation. You know, and there's
that's
different.
A weird.
It is
very small section of people, and they can go.
Well,
somewhere
no,
bad.
because I think it's a lot of people that don't know anything about animals. Because even when you see like the zoos, like, oh, this animal was born at this zoo and is part of conservation and this and that, people are like, they belong in the wild, you're exploiting them. So I think that, you know, people really need to broaden their horizons. I don't agree with the exploitation of like taking baby animals away from their parents and doing photo ops. I think that is a horrible form of exploitation. But I don't think there's anything wrong with what we're doing, swimming with our gators, feeding them, you know, showing the daily vlogs. And what we're going to be doing this whether we film it or not. So you might as well try to make some money to rescue some animals. It's not like this money is going to us. It's not like we live in a mansion. I mean, one day that would be amazing, but it's all going back to the animals.
I don't know. I think that goes down a very weird path I was not prepared to talk about. Okay. So
we don't have to post it.
I don't even know what to say about that.
It's just that there's varying degrees of exploitation.
Well, if you do anything, technically, if you're doing anything that you in any way whatsoever have any sort of benefit from, that is exploitation. You know,
so
obviously
if you take a selfie with your dog and you're getting likes,
you're exploiting your dog. You know, but then when you say that, it's like, yeah, but then we're not justifying Tiger King. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what
Like,
we're talking about,
there's a line of
varying
morality
degrees,
and what's
right.
okay and what's not. But
And it's up to you to decide what you're okay with and what you're not okay with, and everyone's allowed to have an opinion, you know, but it definitely bothers me when,
well,
when
it's
people
gonna pour. So I just want to say something else. Coming back to Steve, is just that, like, you know, what I was saying is how we are using crocodilians as a vehicle to be able to educate people on other animals, because people tune in to watch his show because they think he's going to get eaten by a crocodile, whatever. Same reason people tune in to watch my stuff is they're like, oh my god, he's swimming with an alligator, he's going to die, so I'm going to watch it. But then, you know, then we do like the whole sanctuary vlog and we show all these other animals and talk about rescuing other animals and whatnot. So it is trying to use that, and you know, I'm mimicking that same way that Steve would do that.
most of the comments on your channel, it's enough with the mammals, we want the gators. So it just
Yeah.
goes to show you, people want the alligators and stuff.
Big Mac.
But I also think it's very important to talk about the other animals. And
Bella. There you go. Big Mac. Now, on that note of talking about, you know, Steve and everything, and today is the day that he passed, I always think it's so weird that people see me with crocodilians and they're like, you're gonna die just like Steve, and I'm like, you know, he died from a stingray, right? There's literally nothing to do with this. Like, the guy's famous for handling crocodiles and then dies from not a crocodile, and then I handle crocodiles or alligators, and then everybody's like, you're gonna die just like him, and I'm like,
it's
huh?
crazy. It's so
Like,
ignorant.
it's just so stupid. Like, the disconnect is just nuts. That's like, I'm gonna be doing this stuff and I'm gonna get killed by the friggin' porcupine getting a quill right through the
Oh
heart.
gosh, don't say that.
I know, I don't want to speak that in existence, because I feel like that is definitely a possibility. That thing's pretty dangerous, to be honest with you. You know, and just like Steve getting the stingray bar, if you were not aware, if you are one of these younger people who are not aware of Steve, like, all this amazing work with venomous snakes and crocodiles to be killed by a stingray barb through the heart.
Just a freak
a
accident.
freak
Has that
accident.
ever happened in the history?
I don't think that's ever happened.
So it's just a freak thing.
You know, but then people use a complete, like, what never happened before situation to justify never working with any other animal because you're gonna die just like him. It's like, it is just so dumb. And like, I'm trying to, you know, say in a nice
And
way.
just so disrespectful to Steve. Like
Yeah.
such a legend, and then you're just remembered from your
To
death.
reduce, that's why I get so offended by it, because it's this reductionist mentality of taking everything that man did for conservation and reducing it to, oh, you're just gonna die working with animals like he did. It's like, who are you? Again, I'll come back to it. Anyone who writes comments like that, they do it because they are not happy in their own life. I have never met someone who is happy in their life and accomplished and successful who sits here and writes mean comments to people on the internet. You know, and it just makes me crazy. It's like, yeah, that guy did more with half a life than you will with 3 lifetimes, because you are just comfortable in mediocrity. And that's what I keep on coming back to. Live your passion, guys. Like, do what you love to do. I'm doing what I love to do. And I would be doing this whether or not we had a social media. I did it without social media. I was doing this before there was social media. You know, I'm doing what I love to do and I enjoy it. And I'm glad we have an audience that likes to see that. But I would do it whether or not there's people here anyways.
How many photos do you have with animals when you were 15 years old? Because I have 2.
Yeah.
How many photos do you have with animals?
How many photos do I have that I don't share on social media?
Well, no, I'm talking about before social media was a thing.
Yeah.
You were working with. You told me
I
that
do.
that beautiful crocodile monitor that you
Oh,
worked
yeah.
with. You never got a photo with him because you're like, oh, well, I don't want to be known as like the person that takes photos and this and that. And now you're like, I wish I had a photo with that crocodile monitor because that was the
it was
biggest
the first one I ever worked with.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it was a big one.
So
And,
I don't think there's anything wrong with documenting it. And
Well, talking about Steve too, saltwater crocs. The only saltwater croc I ever got to work with, Big Mac, was a huge one. He was 16 feet, and I got to hand feed him, and it was so cool. I have 2 pictures of me with that crocodile, and I used to hand feed this massive, 16-foot. It was a saltwater Siamese. Bella. Oh, that was my bad. Right off the nose. There you go. But yeah, I have 2 photos with that animal, and it's like, man, I wish I had more of that, you know. But yeah, so you do want to document it. But I was actually going a different route and saying that, like, I was doing this whether or not there's any attention from it either way. And some of my coolest memories that I personally have never been seen. They've never seen the light of day. It's only my very close friends who are aware of them, because either they're too crazy or and legal gray areas. Okay. So I've done
This is
some,
like 20 years ago, so like the statue,
yeah. But there's definitely some very, very fun, some of my favorite memories I've done that nobody even knows about unless you're one of my close friends. Because again, I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me, whether there's an audience or not. That's the one that annoys me too. People are always like, well, you put yourself in increasingly dangerous situations to try and impress people on social media like Steve Irwin. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? I don't even show you guys the cool stuff. I don't even show you the dangerous stuff. I've done stuff so much more dangerous than anything I put online because I don't. People just don't get it. If you go too far outside the norm of what people are okay with, you just look like a lunatic.
You lose all credibility.
You lose credibility. It's so dumb. It's like if you are this skilled, if you go too far outside of what somebody considers to be too normal, it makes them too insecure and they lash out at you and it becomes derogatory. It's a very strange phenomenon that I've seen with myself and other professions as well. And so that's why I've learned from this. And I don't even show the crazier stuff or even talk about it because I know how that is, So yeah, just when people say that, like, oh, you're just doing more and more dangerous to be sensational for TV. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I dumb this stuff down just to make it more relatable to people. And I would say Steve did the same thing. He was doing what he was passionate about. He wasn't pushing the envelope to be more sensationalistic on TV. He was doing what he wanted to do and what he's passionate about and felt comfortable with. Let me grab another piece of shrimp. Big Mac. Oh, you gotta hold it open. You gotta hold. There you go. Bella. Oof, that was a good one. So, I think that's pretty much everything I kind of wanted to say on this subject. And I don't write a script beforehand, so I'm just speaking off the top of my head, And I just saw, that today is the day Steve Irwin passed, so I did just want to do a piece talking about it. This is also just my personal feelings and how I feel, and I use my vlog channel as my way of just expressing myself. And it is a vlog, and sometimes people get mad that like sometimes I get, there's so many mosquitoes. Sometimes I get too personal, or people think like if I'm responding to comments, I'm getting too negative and you should be more professional and just focus on educating. I'm like, I do on my other channels. On my other channels that have over 1 million followers. The vlog, I feel like, is my most sincere channel where like you really get to hear me for who I am, and I really express my feelings and on these topics, and what my true thoughts are. And then this is my smallest channel. It's 120 something thousand subscribers on my vlog. Meanwhile, if you go on my Instagrams, 1.3 million, Facebook, 1.3 million, other Facebook, 1.2 million, TikTok, 5 million. Those are the ones where I definitely, well, by necessity of the way those apps work, I have to keep the videos very short. I can't do this long conversation. I can't go in depth on things. And it definitely gives a more censored version of everything. Are they playing?
They are.
You can show them, yeah.
Well, as soon as you look at them, they'll stop. Oh. You gotta like turn the camera without looking at them. Yep, they're done. They're like, nope, we were not playing together.
But
that never happens.
But yeah, what along those lines, you were gonna say something else too, Gab.
Was I?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember. Oh, what was I gonna say?
Too late now. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of share my feelings on the topic and just like. It's just sad, this is the day that Steve Irwin passed and just how that affected me, and it was just really inspirational, for me. And I wouldn't be where I am right now without Steve probably, because he really did inspire me to take this more seriously in like more of a career fashion. Again, I was already working with animals, but like he really kind of paved the way for everybody. Like, no, this is something you can do as a job, and to be educational and a conservationist, you gotta hold it. You gotta hold. There you go. He keeps on popping up and then closing too quickly. See, like, look, Bella.
Well, we're gonna get poured on, and I want to give Dino some food with his thiamine.
Okay. Yep. All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I'm gonna post this one probably as a standalone away from the vlog, anyways, just because I wanted to like go over all this kind of stuff. And I'll probably do another like kind of Steve tribute on his birthday, because there were other topics about him I wanted to get into as well. But yeah, that's good enough for right now. So just let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thanks for watching.